You may have noticed that Liverpool aren't quite as good this season. They're conceding a lot more goals, they're scoring a lot fewer, they look really vulnerable. This team here, the same team that's been dominating teams for ages, they just don't look the same. But why is that? What's going on? Well, we're going to explore that in this video right here, looking at Liverpool and some of the issues that they've got. And if you enjoy what I say in this video, or any things I've ever said, then please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification, and that means you'll get notified every time we upload new videos all the time. We've got loads of stuff on Liverpool in the past about their defence, but I'm trying not to cover all of it in this one, but we'll look at some of the issues here. So this is how Liverpool tend to play, right? So the best ever Liverpool, it's about 4-3-3. The fullbacks are really important because they get really high and wide. Most of their assists in their title-winning season, or all the chances created, come from these two wide players. They have a number 9 who drops in as a false 9 here, like Firmino. The left winger is an inside forward who plays in this space. The right winger is an inside forward who plays here. Then you've got a midfield that joins up to create a midfield diamond. There's your diamond. So even when you play a 4-4-2, it's the same sort of diamond. And then the centre-backs push up. And the whole thing they do is play quickly, intensely. They're compact when they're playing. They keep the width from a wide player, but they play it through the lines really quickly, and then they're intense, they counter-press, they win the ball back. But teams figured them out. Like, they've had them figured out for a long time. And so lots of teams try and stop this. They would bring an extra player back to block the fullbacks. Watford did this once. They had played a 6-3-1. And they got a win against Liverpool doing this sort of thing. Other teams defend against them in a different way by identifying the space that is left behind Alexander-Arnold, this sort of thing, behind Robertson. People figured this out ages ago, and they would target it and they would play into these channels. And what Liverpool did was try to counter it by having players like Jordan Henderson come over to block it, or James Milner, this sort of thing here. And that's essentially what's happened. So teams knew how Liverpool would play, but they've been so good at playing that way that it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you know how someone's going to play. If you're so intense and you're so good at getting the ball into the final third and scoring, that they can't get out. And we can see that the real problem Liverpool have is that if their identity is their intensity, as the assistant manager Pep Linders has said repeatedly, and it's in his book actually, it's what he talks about, well, they're not as intense anymore. It's just not there. So you can see it with data. So this is how their pressing intensity is trended over time. Their pressing's always very high. There's little dips here and there, and that makes sense. Might be difficult running games. But then you get to this point here and there's a sudden decline. You can see this instantly, that their pressing intensity, which is determined by PPDA, passes per defensive action, how many passes an opposition team make before there's a defensive action against them, it's gone down. You can see the line, that's bad line, it's bad. And then you can see that their high regains has also fallen down. So winning the ball high up the pitch has fallen. It's declines. This is the title winning season when they were very good at it. Then there's a bit of a dip here. They finished 3rd that season, natural maybe after winning the league. And then you come into here, there's a real high, good season for them here, but then another decline. This is what we're seeing this season. They basically started the season quite badly, and we can see it like their goals versus expected goals over time tells us something else. So we can see here that the red basically is bad. This is a bad thing, but the blue is sort of good. It shows that their non-penalty goals are being scored above the XG. So Liverpool really overperformed, particularly at the back end of the 1920 season that they won the title. So they really won it here by performing over what their expected goals said they would. Then their whole season here, they were above. So that, even though they finished 3rd, they actually really overperformed in this season. That was a sort of a decent season, but it's a warning sign. Because then you see here, there's a bit of a decline halfway through 21-22, and then they've started this current season badly. That's why they look bad. They've started the season badly. And we look at the goals conceded, it gets another story for us. So red is bad. 1920, they overperformed. This is what they did that year. So to beat Man City, you have to be beyond perfect. They were well over it here. But here you see blue is good, red is bad. And again, they've started this season badly. So why have they started this season badly? What's happening defensively that is causing them so many problems that didn't used to? So as I've kind of touched on already, what's sometimes happened with this team is that teams target this space in here, and this season they've really done it. So Napoli especially, everything went down this left wing because you know that Alexander-Arnold is going to come out of his position and leave it vacant. Now Liverpool do a thing that we talked about a lot in Tifo IRL about having flexible triangles. So here's a triangle, and the idea is, we'll take Milner out because he doesn't tend to do it very much, put Henderson in. The idea is that these players always are in the same sort of position. So if he moves inside here, Henderson moves outside here, it's a rotation. Salah can drop deep if he wants, pushes Alexander-Arnold up here, which is why sometimes you've seen him over the past couple of seasons in attacking positions, rotating with players. Maybe Salah moving here, Firmino drops in to there. So you get lots of different rotations going all over the pitch. But it relies on Alexander-Arnold pushing forward. Now, what's tended to happen is that Robertson always overlaps. Very seldom does he underlaps. Occasionally you see him get into the box to score or finish off a chance from the other side. But in build-up, they've even changed how they play. So often Robertson would be as high as this. Alexander-Arnold might have been here in previous seasons. But what he's done this season is they've changed it ever so slightly, and they like to change things from season to season, Liverpool, so they don't stay the same always. So Alexander-Arnold, rather than being up here, is actually coming more inside the pitch. And so it's leaving a midfielder to come out wide, maybe Salah to come out wide like this. And that's meaning that Salah's getting all his touches, he's confined to this sort of area with very few in this area where he wants to be to get shots. So he's having fewer touches of the ball in the box this season. That's one of the things that they're doing that's slightly different. But when he's here, it then still leaves this space here, which is forcing, when the ball turns over in weird positions, this guy to come out here, which creates a big divide between the centre-backs. And this sort of gap is what teams are exploiting by getting players in amongst here. So the first goal that Leeds scored against Liverpool, for example, right, it was a mistake by Joe Gomez, who passes blindly from here inside the pitch, and Rodrigo, the striker, comes in to score because the goalkeeper's out of position. But it starts actually a lot earlier in the move, because what happens is that Alexander-Arnold is pushed up too high. He's dragged away because a winger pulls out wide here. Now that then forces this guy to come across a little bit, because this guy pulls up into the space here. So the wide midfielder moves into, he goes in here where the winger would be. Because that's a bit of a worry, he then comes across, which creates this big space here. He follows him into the corner because he's been pulled out of position, and then because he's now doing a different job he shouldn't be, he pushes the ball back into the box, which is what we see catches out the goalkeeper. But it might sound quite harsh on Alexander-Arnold, but this is happening again and again and again. Is teams are focusing on him completely this season. And the reason he's so exposed and making these mistakes is because the front line isn't defending the way they used to. They used to push really high, be super close to the midfield, and then they'd be able to squeeze it and stop things at source. But as we've seen, that intensity has gone down, so the pressures they're putting on the opponent is down. They're making far fewer pressures in the attacking third than they ever have. In fact, they were top last season for pressures in the attacking third. This season, they're kind of mid-table. So it's all changed, and there was too much space between lines, so teams were able to get in between them, getting all these sorts of overloads, and then what you see is a massive gap between the back line and the forward line. So sometimes you'd see kind of this thing, and then if you don't have Salah defending this area, it just leaves a real overload for opposition teams because they weren't defending these spaces properly. So Klopp's solution was to change the shape. Now he says that over time they just maybe become a bit too settled in their ways. They've been playing a team that used to counter press but always did press for a long time, and slight details make all the difference in this. It's a finely tuned machine. And because they've had so many injuries this season, like there's so many injuries, Oxlade-Chamberlain isn't even here on the board because he's not played at all. You've been missing players like Gomez has come back from injury recently, but Alexander-Arnold's been sat out a bit, Robertson's had to look after him a little bit, Thiago's been injured, Fabinho's been injured, Milner's now injured, he's been missed, Jones has been missing for ages. Who have we got? Matip's injured, Jota's injured, Konaté's injured, Henderson's missed games, Keita's injured, Diaz is injured. Like injuries, lack of cohesion, team's not there, the finely tuned bits are slightly out, and then teams are sensing the vulnerability, confidence falls, and this is where the holes start to appear. So the solution, a 4-4-2, which is essentially, it's not actually that much different. You play Milner on the right to support Alexander-Arnold behind him here, and you put Jones maybe as a left here, and here's your front two. So it's not actually that much different to the 4-3-3, because what you might get is Firmino will come here, Salah will go up here, the wide left midfielder, either Jones or Diaz, we'll put Diaz in again, Diaz is there. You get like this, and then of course the midfield might tuck in a little bit behind them, because these guys are going to go wide, push up here, and you're sort of in exactly the same position that you ever were, because what you really have now is that same diamond, with two forwards in this wide area. So that's something they've tried to do, but the real reason is not for attack, it's to make them more compact. This is something Klopp's been talking about. Too many holes appearing, so now they want to get players closer together, defend more as a unit, so when you see teams attacking them, even though there will still be this big gap between the forwards and the rest of the midfield, there's now extra players here, doubled up in the wide areas, because teams are always getting overloads in these situations, stretching him out, getting someone to run through the gap. That's where they're causing trouble for Liverpool this season. They know it. Alexander-Arnold sat out games this season to try and give him a bit of a break from it, I think. So that's one of the things that we've seen a lot from Liverpool. But we then also saw in the previous game that Liverpool played a reversal to the 4-3-3 that they always seem to come back to. So it might be that Klopp's just trying to put them back to basics, doing the thing they've done so well over time, and hopefully that intensity builds. But the other problem they've got is that basically this is the end of a cycle for Liverpool. The team's starting to change. They're trying to build a whole new team. And you think like the loss of Sadio Mane is enormous. So when you lose a player like Mane, who would play in this left forward space here where Diaz is now, he didn't press all the time. He chose exactly when to press. He would lead the press. Players would follow him. And the difference in defensive quality between him and whoever's played there, whether Jota or Diaz, it's immense. I mean, you can measure. I was going to say it's immeasurable, but you can measure it. Liverpool's intensity is down, and it's maybe related a lot to Mane not being there. They brought in Darwin Núñez in the summer, so the idea was to get Firmino out, maybe just change the team up a bit, change the way it works. We put Núñez in here, then you have this guy here, so he's going to defend in a different way to Roberto Firmino. That changes that. Then that changes the way that Salah plays, because he's going to be sometimes in the spaces that Salah is. And they're not winning the ball back, like we said, right high up the pitch, but this is a whole new team. Diaz is new, Núñez is new, the midfield is getting slightly older, and that's actually really important to look at, because if we talk about this being the end of a cycle, well, let's look at what we've got here. So you want players really to be in this red bit here. This is the age profile in the squad playing time of the amount of minutes that they played is up here. So important players, obviously Van Dijk, Salah and Alisson are at the top, because they're the most important ones. But then you have, this is the ages across the bottom here. Now, you want them to be here, but the key players, if you look at them like Matip, Alcantara, Henderson, Firmino, Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson, they're all just slightly over this brilliant red zone where you want them to be. So constantly you want to keep refreshing your team and bring new players through below it, so you can, you're generating a new team. And managers like Alex Ferguson or Guardiola will happily rip out the best players once they've achieved something to bring in new players with more intensity and desire to keep you going. Because then what you have is the players who are in this zone here, Tsimikas, Phillips, Gomez, like these aren't the actual key players. Younger players, Alexander-Arnold still counts. And you've got the young ones coming through, like Curtis Jones, great player, Konate, great player, Carvalho, Elliott, Núñez, they're all going to be really good players, but they're not yet in their peak. So you've got one team is coming to the end of a cycle, one team just coming into it, loads of injuries to deal with. The front line's not put enough pressure in the final third to be able to keep the ball there and keep teams at bay, and that is causing lots of knock-on problems at the back. And so when Liverpool are able to keep their intensity, and they have done that against teams like Manchester City, where they managed to beat them, and Man United as well, like the big games, they've been all right, but they've been taken apart by teams like Napoli, who sit, wait for them to come out, create the space, always this situation here, and they're punishing them again and again and again with this. So there's a lot of work for Jurgen Klopp to do. They are working on it, but it's very hard to do it when you are missing about 20,000 players through injury, and other teams have worked out your vulnerabilities, and you're feeling a bit less than confident. So Liverpool, not great right now, but they'll be absolutely fine, I think, soon. So look forward to that. Liverpool fans, it's not all bad. You'll be all right. It's only 13 points off Man City. You've done better than that before, I think. There we go. So anyway, that's us. That's what Liverpool, that's the problem that's happening this season with them. There's more specific videos in Tifo IRL about the defensive part and the midfield part that we've done in previous videos. So have a look for them on the channel, and yeah, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Have a lovely time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Ralph Rangnick to Manchester United story broke, where a team of journalists have provided unrivaled coverage of Newcastle United's new ownership, and where dedicated writers cover every Premier League team, no matter their place in the table. And you can try it free now for 30 days.